Have you ever noticed that the most dangerous people in any room are not the loudest? They're the ones who say nothing at all, the ones who sit back, observe, and let everyone else expose themselves through words. There's a reason why silence terrifies people more than any insult ever could. Because silence is a mirror. It reflects back their insecurities, their desperation, their need for validation. And when you master the art of strategic silence, you don't just gain power, you become untouchable. Miyamoto Musashi, the legendary samurai who won over 60 duels without a single defeat, understood something most people never will. The deadliest strike isn't the one you make. It's the one you don't make. The moment you hold back when everyone expects you to attack. That hesitation, that calculated stillness, it breaks your opponent's rhythm. It forces them into uncertainty. And in that uncertainty, they destroy themselves. This isn't about being passive. This is about weaponizing your restraint, about learning when to speak and when to let your silence cut deeper than any word could. Most people are terrified of silence. Put them in a quiet room with no distractions, no phones, no noise, and watch them unravel within minutes. Why? Because silence forces confrontation with the self. It strips away the masks, the performances, the carefully constructed identities. And what's left is raw, uncomfortable truth. That's why people fill every gap with noise. They talk when they should listen. They explain when they should observe. They react when they should calculate. Because staying silent requires something most don't have: the strength to sit with discomfort without needing to resolve it immediately. But here's what changes when you embrace silence. You stop giving people ammunition. Every word you speak is information. Every reaction is a window into your mind. Every explanation is a weakness they can exploit. The moment you go silent, you close those windows. You become unreadable. And when people can't read you, they can't manipulate you, they can't predict you, they can't control you. Your silence becomes a fortress they can't penetrate. Think about the last time someone insulted you. What did you do? Most people defend themselves immediately. They justify, explain, argue back. And in doing so, they reveal exactly where it hurt. They confirm that the attack landed. They give their opponent the satisfaction of knowing they have power. But what if instead you said nothing? What if you just looked at them, held their gaze for a moment and then turned away? That silence would haunt them far more than any comeback. Because now they're left wondering, did I not even register? Am I that irrelevant? That's the power of strategic silence. Machiavelli understood this at the highest levels of power. He observed that rulers who spoke too much revealed too much. They made promises they couldn't keep. They explained strategies their enemies could counter. They showed emotion when they should have shown stone. The most effective leaders, he noted, were the ones who let others speak first, who gathered information through listening, who never committed to a position until they had all the variables mapped. Silence wasn't weakness for them. It was intelligence gathering. It was strategic positioning. It was control. Now, there are different types of silence, and understanding the difference is crucial. There's passive silence, the kind that comes from fear or uncertainty. The silence of someone who has nothing to say because they don't know what to think. That's not power, that's absence. But then there's active silence, the kind that comes from choice. The deliberate decision not to speak even though you could, the restraint of holding back when you have the perfect response. That silence is loaded. It carries weight. It communicates strength, composure, and something far more dangerous: intention. When you practice active silence, people feel it. They sense that you're not quiet because you're lost. You're quiet because you're observing. You're calculating. You're several moves ahead and you don't need to announce it. That creates an aura around you, a presence that demands respect without asking for it. Because the unspoken question in everyone's mind becomes, what does he know that I don't? And that question, left unanswered, gives you more power than any words could. Here's a brutal truth about conversations. The person who speaks first usually loses. Why? Because they reveal their position, their needs, their weaknesses. They set the frame, but in doing so, they also limit themselves to that frame. The person who stays silent has the advantage. They can listen, adapt, and respond with precision. They don't show their hand until the other person has shown theirs. This is negotiation 101. This is interrogation tactics. This is power dynamics in their purest form. And yet most people are so uncomfortable with silence that they rush to fill it, giving away leverage they didn't even know they had. So how do you start weaponizing your silence? First, you have to break your addiction to validation. Most of us speak because we want to be heard, to be understood, to be acknowledged. We need people to know our thoughts, our feelings, our opinions. But that need is a leash. It makes you controllable. When you no longer need to be heard, when you're comfortable being misunderstood, when your silence doesn't bother you more than their confusion, you've crossed into freedom. You've severed the leash. Second, you train yourself to pause before responding. When someone asks you a question, challenges you, or tries to provoke you, don't react immediately. Take 3 seconds, breathe, let the silence settle. This does 2 things. It gives you time to think, and it makes the other person uncomfortable. In that discomfort, they often reveal more. They fill the gap with additional information, backtrack, or expose their real motive. And you didn't have to do anything except wait. Third, you learn to observe without judgment. Silence gives you the space to watch people, not just their words, but their body language, their tone, their micro-expressions. When you're not busy formulating your next response, you start seeing things others miss. You notice who's lying, who's insecure, who's trying to manipulate. You read the room in ways that people who are always talking never can. And with that information, you can move strategically, precisely, lethally if needed. Now here's where it gets advanced. Silence isn't just about not speaking. It's about controlling the rhythm of interaction. When you speak rarely, your words carry more weight. When you finally do say something, people listen. They lean in. They pay attention because they know you don't waste words. This is the opposite of the person who talks constantly. Their words become noise. Meaningless background, static. But you've trained people to expect significance from you, so when you speak, it lands. And when you choose to withdraw completely, to remove yourself from a situation without explanation, that's the ultimate power move. No drama, no argument, no justification, just absence. People will scramble to understand why. They'll replay every conversation, every interaction, searching for what they did wrong. They'll create narratives in their head that elevate you far beyond where you actually are, because the human mind can't handle unresolved mysteries. It fills gaps with assumptions, and those assumptions almost always favor the person who left. Musashi practiced this in his duels. Sometimes he wouldn't even show up on time. He'd arrive late, letting his opponent stew in anxiety, doubt, and frustration. By the time the fight began, his opponent was mentally defeated. Musashi hadn't swung a single strike, but he'd already won. That's the power of strategic absence, of making people feel your silence before they even see you. But let's be clear about something. Silence is not about being cold or emotionless. It's not about shutting people out for the sake of it. It's about being selective. It's about recognizing that your attention, your words, your presence are valuable resources. And like any valuable resource, they should not be given freely. They should be invested wisely, strategically, intentionally. When you speak, it should serve a purpose. When you're silent, it should communicate something even louder. There will be people who try to break your silence. They'll provoke you, insult you, demand answers. They'll call you cold, distant, arrogant. Let them. Their discomfort with your silence is not your problem. It's theirs. And the moment you break your silence to appease them, you've handed over your power. You've shown that they can control you with pressure. Don't give them that satisfaction. Hold your ground. Let them talk themselves into circles while you remain unmoved. Here's what most people don't realize. Silence creates space. Space for clarity, space for observation, space for strategy. When you're constantly talking, you're constantly reacting. You're in the noise, part of the chaos. But when you step back into silence, you rise above it. You see the patterns, you understand the game. And from that elevated position, you can make moves that others don't even see coming. Because while they're busy fighting in the mud, you're looking at the entire battlefield from above. And the longer you hold your silence, the more powerful it becomes. Days, weeks, months. Let people wonder where you went. Let them question if they've lost access to you. Let them feel the absence. Because when you finally reappear, you won't need to announce anything. Your silence will have already done the work. People will treat you differently. They'll respect your time more. They'll value your words more. They'll approach you with more caution, more consideration. Not because you demanded it, but because your absence taught them your worth. Now there's a final layer to this. The most dangerous silence of all is internal silence. The ability to quiet your own mind. Most people are at war with themselves constantly. Their thoughts race, their emotions pull them in every direction. Their inner dialogue is a battlefield of doubt, fear, and anxiety. That internal noise makes them weak. It makes them reactive, unstable, easy to manipulate. But when you learn to silence your own mind, when you can sit in complete mental stillness, even in the middle of chaos, you become something else entirely. Musashi called this no mind, a state where you're not thinking, not analyzing, not second-guessing. You're just present, aware, ready. And from that state, your actions become effortless. You don't hesitate. You don't overthink. You simply move with precision and clarity. This is the highest level of mastery, not just silence toward others, but silence within yourself. And when you achieve that, you're no longer playing the same game as everyone else. You're operating from a dimension they can't even comprehend. So here's your challenge. For the next 7 days, practice strategic silence. When someone tries to provoke you, say nothing. When someone asks your opinion on something trivial, decline to answer. When you feel the urge to explain yourself, resist. Observe what happens. Watch how people react to your silence. Watch how uncomfortable they become. Watch how they try to fill the gap. And most importantly, watch how you feel. Notice if you're addicted to being heard. Notice if silence makes you anxious. Because that discomfort is where the work begins. Silence is not the absence of power, it's the concentration of it. Every word you don't say is energy you conserve. Every reaction you withhold is control you maintain. Every time you choose silence over noise, you're choosing mastery over mediocrity. And over time, that choice compounds. You become known not for what you say, but for what you don't say. Not for how you react, but for how you don't react. And that reputation, that aura of quiet power, becomes your greatest weapon. Because in a world where everyone is screaming for attention, the person who says nothing stands out the most. In a culture addicted to noise, silence is rebellion. In a society that demands constant explanation, refusal to justify is revolution. And when you master this, when you become someone who moves through life with deliberate, calculated stillness, you don't just gain respect, you command it. You don't just survive, you dominate. And you do it all without saying a word. So remember this, your silence is not weakness. It's warfare, it's strategy. It's the sharpest blade in your arsenal. And the moment you realize that, the moment you stop filling every gap with words and start letting your stillness speak, you cross into a level of power most people will never understand, because they're too busy talking to ever hear what silence is really saying. And that's their loss, not yours. If you've made it this far, you're not here by accident. Something in you recognized the truth in these words. the power that lives in restraint, the strength that hides in stillness. You're not like the rest, and you know it. So here's what you do next. Don't announce your transformation. Don't explain this to anyone. Just apply it. Go silent. Watch what happens. And when people start asking where you went, when they start noticing the shift, when they start treating you differently, you'll know. You'll know that silence worked. And if this resonated, if you felt the weight of these words, leave a comment below with just 3 words. I choose silence, not for validation, not for the algorithm, but as a reminder to yourself, a declaration that you're done being controlled by noise, that you're stepping into something deeper, quieter, deadlier. And subscribe if you want more of this, not surface-level motivation, but the raw, uncomfortable truths that most are too afraid to speak. This is where transformation happens, in the silence, in the stillness, in the absolute refusal to explain yourself to a world that was never going to understand anyway. Now go, be quiet, be still, and watch the world bend to you.